You live long enough, you collect stories, not your own, but the people who pass through your life. I'm Larry Howard. I grew up in rural Ohio, and over the years, I've known people with stories that will make you laugh, cry, and wonder. This podcast is about those lives, the beautiful, the broken, and everything in between. These are the people I know. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of the people I know or its host. This podcast is for entertainment and informational purposes only. Howze is a pioneering figure in professional audio and one of the founders of the modern touring sound industry. Born in Arlington, Virginia on October 16, 1943, Bruce spent his early years living internationally, including time in Egypt and Lebanon before completing high school in Connecticut. After a brief period at Yale, he moved to Boston and later Philadelphia, where he founded Community Light and Sound Company in 1968. Initially focused on building lighting equipment for local venues such as the Electric Factory, Bruce soon became involved in the emerging live concert touring business through the Festival Group, working on early tours with Jefferson Airplane. Recognizing the lack of loudspeakers designed for touring, he began developing innovative speaker systems, marking the beginning of Community Loudspeakers division and a career that has spanned more than 5 decades. Under Bruce's leadership, Community Professional Loudspeakers became known for engineering innovation, including groundbreaking systems such as Leviathan and LMF, as well as highly respected installation and touring products used worldwide. Today, after more than 55 years in the industry, Bruce remains active and continues to contribute to the evolution of professional audio. Bruce, thank you very much for joining me.
I'm glad to be here.
You seem to have had a very interesting childhood. Can you tell me about that and how those early years influenced your life?
I'm not sure about the influence, but it was enjoyable. My father worked with Esso Oil Company, and he was in charge of their division in the Middle East. And we moved to Cairo when I was just starting 6th grade. So I went through 6th grade and 7th grade in British schools in Cairo, and then we came back for vacation. Summer vacation, and that was the start of the Suez Canal crisis. So my mother and I stayed in New York City for that year, and I went through 8th grade there. And my father went back to continue running the company, and so then the following summer we went back to Cairo and then moved to Beirut. And Beirut was very enjoyable. Beirut was quite a lovely place at that time. It's changed a lot now, unfortunately.
What do you remember about it?
Well, I remember our apartment, which looked out over the Mediterranean. Remember starting 9th grade in the American school in Beirut, and that was enjoyable. And then,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, then we moved back to the U.S. Purchased a house in Stamford, Connecticut, and I finished up 9th grade there, and then went through high school, a private school in that area, and then had a very brief time at Yale, uh, it was funny. I did well in high school. I was valedictorian of our class. Um, it wasn't a very big class, but anyway, um,
Good to be at the top.
yeah. Uh, I think when I got to Yale, I think I just wasn't college material. It just wasn't. It just didn't work for me.
In a sense that just at that time you didn't like enjoy learning, or what they were teaching just wasn't of interest.
I think it was mostly just that I felt out of place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so after that, I returned to Stamford, to our home in Stamford. Worked in a gas station for a while, and then moved to Boston, um, and worked in a garage there for a while, and then went to Tufts University for a while. It did a little better there. I made it through a year, but it just wasn't working. And after I failed the same calculus course twice, I said, well, that's it.
That's funny because knowing you, I've seen you do some rather wizardry things with mathematics and calculus. So I guess that's a learned trait over time.
Yeah. And when it related to something I was doing,
Yeah.
yeah, it was fine.
Yeah. I think I'm pretty similar in that fact. If I can we go back to your dad, and can you explain like what he was doing and what led to the move to Egypt and then to Lebanon?
Well, he was working for Esso Oil Company, and
Was that an American company?
oh yeah,
Okay. All right.
uh, it's now Exxon Mobil,
Gotcha. All right.
and I think originally we went to Egypt because my father was filling in for the person who was running the company at that time, and it was going to be just a temporary trip,
Right.
but turned out not to be temporary, and my father was given control of the Near East division, and
Did
so
he have an engineering background, or is he management?
no, he I guess his I mean he went to college and graduated and was in the Air Force,
Oh.
and actually during the Second World War he was responsible for aviation fuel
Oh yeah.
worldwide. You know, making sure it was always where it needed to be.
Yeah.
And um, then after the war, um, he went to Esso Oil Company, and
Kind of where the relationship started with Esso was
yeah,
he being in the military there, private company,
yeah,
fuel.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So it just all worked out nicely.
Yeah. You imagine the enormity of having fuel around the world.
Oh yeah,
Think of, the aircraft carriers to the jets. The
yeah,
amount of fuel they drink is staggering.
yeah.
Okay, so we got through Tufts and you end up in Philly. How did you end up in Philly?
I can tell you, I was going to a psychoanalyst in Boston at that time. He moved to Philadelphia. I had no particular reason to stay in Boston, so I moved to Philadelphia too.
Excellent. And I think about electric factory, and I've heard so many stories. Can you give us like a sense of like the vibe of Philly, how the electric factory fit in there, and in the vibe of Philly, and then how did you inject yourself into that?
Um, well, the vibe in Philadelphia was very nice. It was a hippie environment, uh, anti-war environment, probably very similar to lots of other places.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was very enjoyable. And when I got there, I started, um, I'm not quite sure why, I started building lighting equipment, strobe lights, color organs, relatively simple things. I got circuits out of Popular Electronics,
All right.
but I started supplying that sort of equipment to some local clubs, and then Electric Factory was one of those clubs, and far larger than any of the other ones. And it was the main center of music at that time in Philadelphia. It was, everybody who was anybody played the Electric Factory.
Can you describe like what it was? Was it two stories? Was it one massive room? Was it
It
multiple?
was one massive room. It had been a warehouse,
Okay.
and just giant rectangular room,
Yeah.
stage on one of the long sides. Uh, Sound system was, let's say, evolving. Uh, the the guys that started the Electric Factory uh, owned several bars in Philadelphia, and so they hired the guy who did the sound for their bars, did the jukeboxes, and so on, um, to do the sound in this club. And of course, he had no, it wasn't a bar, it wasn't a jukebox.
Yeah.
He had no experience with that sort of thing, and he just kept putting more and more stuff on stage, and it just, it really just wasn't up to. It was the wrong sort of stuff,
Yeah.
and
Do you remember what they actually were? The boxes?
Seberg
Seaberg. So
jukebox speakers.
like just an 8-inch speaker?
No, they were big. They were probably 12-inch two ways, 15-inch two ways.
Okay.
Um,
And
but
how,
anyway, it was just sort of hopeless. And as it went along, it became obvious it was just beyond the capability of this guy. He just had no. Um, anyway, I did some strobe lights for the Electric Factory, and some controls for the stage lighting. And out of the Electric Factory, um, a tour sound company started. And, their first job was to put a proper sound system in the Electric Factory. And so, anyway, I started working with them. Um, I made a mixer for them, um, and then started doing a little bit of touring. Did a couple tours with Jefferson Airplane. Did a couple of festivals, the Atlantic City Pop Festival, uh, New Orleans Pop Festival, and at that time, the tour sound was a completely new industry. It didn't exist, 5 years before. And of course, there was no real equipment, certainly no speakers. And what we were using, or what everybody was using at that time, was cinema speakers. Kind of you had real good sound in movie theaters. Only problem, it was never designed to be moved.
Right.
You had bass horns that were probably as big as phone booths or bigger. And you just, you put them on the stage and put the multi-cells on top, on the screen, and that was it. You didn't go anywhere. A little different if you're going to be taking it on off a truck every night.
Right, right.
And so I did that for a while, but it was obvious to me this wasn't the right stuff. And so I thought I would try to design some better stuff. And that's kind of how I got started in speakers.
So I guess what were the amplifiers then?
The amplifiers, a lot of them were Macintosh tube amplifiers.
Right. Now,
And during that period, that's when Crown came out with the DC 300.
oh boy.
Which, yeah, which was really good at that time. A whole lot better than the tube amps.
It was bulletproof back then. Huh?
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, that's what.
So in that period, where were you building this stuff?
I when I started the company, it was in the building I lived in. It was at 16th and South. It was a 4-story building. I rented the building, and yeah, the first fiberglass speaker I made in that building.
No, no OSHA standards back then.
No. Well, anyway, not anything I bothered with.
That's great.
Yeah, and that's where I made the LMF, which is the first horn I made, and also the first fiberglass.
So where did the idea of doing fiberglass come from?
I had a friend at the time that used to work in a surf shop
Oh, no.
and used to build surfboards. So he knew about fiberglass, and he told me a little bit about it. And I don't know, just kind of figured it out.
And thinking of like LMF, where did the design idea come from? The throat size, the flare. How did you figure that out?
Uh, well, I had read Olson's book on acoustics, and a lot of that information was just in there. It was fairly easy to figure out the expansion rate for an exponential horn. And the LMF used a 12-inch driver, 12-inch cone driver. And yeah, it just.
Do you remember where you got those drivers?
They were JBL.
So at that time, JBL was probably the.
Oh, yeah.
And did they kind of establish before Electro Voice?
I think so. Yes, I think so.
Okay. So that's low frequency, and how about high frequency? What were those drivers?
Also JBL.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, at that point, Community was just making horns. You could put any driver you wanted on the horn.
Gotcha.
It was, so it sort of went from the LMF to Leviathan, which was a 215 bass horn,
Okay.
which was very nice for tour sound, um, because the driver compartment was latched to the horn with latches you could take off, and the extension for the horn latched onto the front the same way. What that meant, you could take that horn through a 30-inch wide door, put it on stage, and click it together, and you had this rather large bass horn.
So where did that come from? Did that come from doing clubs and the need to get through a standard door because they didn't have loading docks back then?
Um, yeah, yeah, some of that, and
I mean, thinking about it, that's like the beginning of your kind of radical innovations, Bruce. I mean, you did some things and are still doing amazing things, but you have to craft to what the industry needs and can use.
yeah.
And then I think the ultimate goal is just to make it easier. And at that time, were you building everything for yourself and the company you were working with? And when did that transition from that to people coming to Philadelphia and knocking on a door and saying, hey, can we try some of these out or buy some?
Um, well, probably for my first customers was Festival Group, the company that I worked with. He was
Yeah.
a natural connection and a good opportunity to try out something. And yeah, then from there, probably our first customer outside of Festival Group, for the Leviathan was Clare Brothers, and they used them for a while. And
Is this story that I think I remember correct, that Elvis Presley was very impressed with the sound systems that were being developed that he didn't have, but he didn't want them on stage and he wanted them flown and wanted them white? And Claire did a show with them flown over his head, all white, and that he kind of walked around the stage the whole time singing and looking up because he was afraid they were going to fall because it was done.
actually, I'm not sure about that, but yeah, I know the Leviathans were used on an Elvis Presley tour.
I seem to remember somebody telling me that story, that was
That's quite possible.
one of the first times
Yeah,
of a flown PA. And
yeah. It certainly wasn't what was done at the time. You just stacked everything up on stage.
and as a comparison, were the fiberglass cabinets later than the wood cabinets maybe other people were building?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, lighter and also more easily portable because it came apart.
Yeah. That's awesome. You know what I think I'll do on a website is I want to get some pictures of some of this stuff and post it to go along with the story, because
That'd be real good. People can see
a lot of
what it
people
actually.
will listen to this and, maybe they can picture how you would snap on a wider throat to a wider throat, but not really realizing the size you're talking about. They had to be built strong, and obviously they had to be built so you could reconnect them time after time.
Yeah,
So that's a lot of engineering and a lot of strong hardware to go along with it.
yeah. We had some really good latches, and yeah, it just worked nicely.
What was the monitor stage monitor or kind of full range you built that had the wheels on it. It was fiberglass,
Oh, the PBL.
EBL. That was a big hit, correct?
Yeah, yeah, sort of for side stage monitor. Um, well, it was just a nice, convenient system.
Good all around box.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite fiberglass enclosure that you built, like something that was just so hard to get done, you figured it out and it turned out great?
Um, Probably the Leviathan would be that. Uh, made several uh, uh, other system and system components. Um, but probably that was the best one, the most unique one. I mean, we made radial high frequency horns and the usual stuff. But
VHF 100 would that be maybe the biggest selling product you ever? Hardware or
mm,
device?
no,
M2?
probably not. But it did okay. It certainly did okay.
Which one would be? M4? Oh, I wish it
Eh,
had more, to be honest.
um, yeah, the M4 was a very impressive driver, and nothing like that existed at that time.
Has
It,
anybody tried to replicate that?
I don't think so.
I think so.
No, it was, actually, for most of my speaker development, I concentrated on the mid-range,
Yeah,
and that certainly was what that was. It was a extremely powerful mid-range driver. Um,
absolutely.
fairly large, fairly expensive, but there wasn't anything else that existed like that.
Very powerful.
Yeah,
Very powerful. I think when we first met, I was at Universal Studios.
yeah,
And do you remember when we spent that day and walked through every
yes, I
field?
do. Yeah, yeah, and that to me that was very interesting and educational. I could see what was needed, and theme parks got me thinking about weatherproof stuff. Previously, the reason for using fiberglass was simply it was convenient. You could make whatever shape you needed. You weren't limited to what you could make with wood. Um, but I wasn't thinking about it for outdoor use. But yeah, um, so that was sort of a whole other from what you showed me, what we saw, um, you know, kind of got me thinking about, well, what could you do for
Yeah.
this sort of,
Well, I think
I don't
about
know.
the wet series that you've done and the R series, and for Florida in particular, with the amount of heat that we get, the amount of humidity to go along with the heat,
Yeah,
the temperature swings, all of the condensation problems that we have, and then with theme parks, you always are running at 11, never
yeah,
9 or 10. It's high SPL, and
yeah,
that's part of the excitement of the rides and the attractions are.
it's the audio. Yeah,
I think about both wet and R series and your dedication to what you just said about the mid frequency and having paper cones wherever you can for mid, because it's just natural sounding, or a device as similar to that as you can get.
yeah,
That was a massive hit and still is in theme parks, and now including racetracks. A big
Yeah.
NASCAR fan, IndyCar,
Yeah.
Formula One, and you watch tracks around the world, and
Yep.
you'll see them everywhere.
Yep. Yeah. One particular product in the R series, the um, R.5 HP, was a really compact three-way system, um, 12-inch driver, 12-inch LF driver, an M200, 2-inch throat mid-range driver, and 1-inch throat high-frequency driver. All this in this rotomolded cabinet was about 16 inches square and 16 inches deep. Yeah, that is a big, big factor for racetracks, and probably God knows how many racetracks that's been used in. A lot of NASCAR tracks, Talladega. Uh, yeah, it was just the ideal speaker. It was fairly full range, sounded good for music, but when you lean on it, you got a whole lot of intelligible stuff. The spectrum sort of narrowed, but the important stuff got through.
I remember being in Atlanta, commissioning the system there, and playing back the national anthem audio track. One of the track guys just stood with his mouth open, and when it finished, he didn't really speak. He just looked over and then got this big grin on his face. Think of guys that had been around that industry forever,
Yeah,
and the quality of loudspeakers was next to zero. And, even when they were working, they weren't really intelligible, or they were 5 feet from your head and blowing the hair off your head.
yeah,
And now to have something that literally was full range, um, they loved it. And it really brought a different kind of excitement to the tracks. And the guys that ran the audio knew right away that they had a whole nother tool for
yeah,
entertainment.
yeah.
Prior to the races or in between
Sure.
qualifying, now they could play music that would really kind of pump up the
Yeah,
crowd.
yeah. Keep everything going, and
And part of something I don't think a lot of people understand is the amount of increased intelligibility you get from a full range speaker.
yeah,
So going from, a squawk box horn,
yeah,
all of a sudden the announcers are far more understood than they would have ever been prior.
yeah,
And I think that news kind of spread like wildfire throughout the whole NASCAR nation.
yeah. It was nice to be able to do that, and certainly financially worked out well. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite speaker you built ever?
Oh, I don't know, a favorite speaker. Lots of them. Well, certainly the Leviathan,
Yeah.
the M4, the R2, um, which was this is when we were starting to pay attention to outdoor speakers. Um, it was a three-way horn system with a pair of 12s and an M200 mid-range driver and a 1-inch throat eminence high-frequency driver. That just became very popular for lots of small stadiums, like high school football stadiums, and it was just perfect for that.
How
And
would, how would you, what do you call that splay on those 12-inch devices that are in there?
um, it's just what would fit.
More horsepower.
Yeah,
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
yeah. So the R series was very instrumental in getting us into outdoor stuff, and it's still going today. I mean,
Rose Bowl.
yeah,
What's it? The Japanese track, because where they have the Formula One race. Can't think. I know there are
I've,
dozens and dozens of
yeah,
them. I know traveling the world and certainly all over the United States, can't tell you the amount of high schools that I've passed and see a pair of R2s up there.
yeah.
Do you know what your highest selling speaker of all time was?
Yeah, it was sort of in between the fiberglass stuff for tour sound and the fiberglass stuff for outdoors. We started making MI systems, PA systems for bands that was sold in music stores, and there were about 6 or 7 products in that line. It did real well. Um, the biggest seller was the CSX 35, and I think in one year we sold 10,000 of those.
What period was that, Bruce?
That was in the 80s, sort of the late 80s, early 90s, um, and
So
yeah, that
that would have been so you, JBL, EV, PV.
yeah,
What
exactly. But,
what was different about the CXS 35?
um, not sure what. It just sounded better than most of the competitors' products and was probably less expensive. It was
Yeah.
a very simple product. Uh, a 15-inch driver and a piezoelectric high frequency section. And
And the protection on that HF was what?
um, in general, the protection in for all the systems was uh, circuit breakers. If you size the circuit breaker for what section you were dealing with, and when it would trip the circuit breaker, it would put little light bulbs in the circuit. That's what was around the breaker. When the breaker opened, these light bulbs would come on, and they, as the current through them increased, obviously they got brighter, and their resistance went up, consequently lowering the load on the speaker. And then what we did, we put the circuit breaker right next to these light bulbs. And the circuit breaker was a thermally sensitive device. So once you tripped it, the light bulbs would come on. And if you just sort of stayed around that level, the breaker would sort of go on and off. But the light bulbs would get it hot. And then it would trip earlier and stay on longer. And after a while, it would just stay on. Uh, and it was a very effective protection circuit for the CSX products. I think that's one of the reasons that they were popular. I
Was
wouldn't say you couldn't break them, but it was pretty hard to break them.
was that unique to your product? Did you know anybody else that was doing that?
I didn't know anybody else was doing it. Um, Certainly other people could have done it. I didn't know. I wasn't copying somebody's
Yeah.
thing. It just,
certainly wasn't my idea of asking. I think that was probably it. That so at that time, you think about who's running sound. There was no real education for sound engineers yet.
No.
And a lot of times it was the band, the keyboard player reaching over
Yeah.
and moving faders. So if you think about how many other companies' loudspeakers would lose an HF, and
Yes.
you're in the middle of, Lord knows where, Iowa or Wisconsin or Florida,
Yeah.
and there's no place to get another speaker, you're screwed.
Yeah.
So that kind of information, I think, would travel very quickly that these speakers don't break.
Yeah. They don't break. Yeah. Sound good. Don't break.
Think about that and some DC 300s.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes.
I just had Scott Robbins, who had worked at Crown for years on a prior episode, and we were talking about the DC 300s, and it was a little bit before my time, but as I was getting into it, I knew of them, and
Yeah. I'm sure they were still around,
yeah,
but they made more advanced models at that point. But
and
plenty of DC 300s around.
the stories of people, the racks dropping out of the back of the truck or off a trailer or off the stage, and pick them back up, and you couldn't kill them.
Yeah.
There was
Yeah.
nothing delicate about them.
Yeah.
And I think that rolls right along with what you're saying with the CSX 35s is they take a beating and just keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. The entire CSX line did.
I think like at that period, you captured the leading position in the outdoor loudspeakers. I know a lot of companies have tried to replicate what you started and what you did.
Mhm.
Over this period of time, how have you maintained like that position at the top?
I think reasonably well, but yeah, certainly it's true that a lot of competitor products have come along, and a lot of them are quite good. So I don't know that we're still the leader of that, but in that market, but we do pretty well.
I'll give you an analogy, Bruce. Big switch in video went from projection to LED. And a lot of companies want to be selling LED, but selling one or two or sometimes even 8 different models doesn't really make you good at that business or in that business. I think the prowess that community had and has is you have a dedication to that technology, that fiberglass technology, that rotomolded technology, the grills with multiple layers that keep out not just rain, not just bugs, but the hoses that the theme parks use.
Yeah. Yes.
Directed, right at the speakers. And, if you think about the companies that have tried to replicate it, I think they maybe zero in on 1 or 2 of your products, but can never really cover the range that you've designed and built and are still selling.
Yeah, that's probably true.
No,
Yeah, it certainly worked out nicely.
yeah, I think for me watching and, and being part of your group
Yeah.
for a while there, I've always kept an eye on the competitors. And, in my earlier career, I was always kind of ticked off when a competitor would go after something that I'd been a part of the design.
Yeah.
over time, then you kind of realize that
That's the way it works.
it's justification for what
Yeah.
you've done too.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think to my point, you not just doing this terrific and this terrific, but filling in all of it. So when companies need something that will work outdoors for years and years and have the amount of output and sound quality, they know they can come to you.
Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah, and it still works.
So recently, you sold your company to buy it.
Well, actually, that was sort of a two-step process. In the so around 2015, we hooked up with a private equity company in Belgium that owned a speaker company called Apart, and Apart was looking to expand, and they looked at what we did. It was different from what they did. They did mostly smaller install speakers. Um, so our product lines didn't overlap too much. And anyway, we decided to sell um, 51% interest in Community to this to 3D, the private equity company that also owned Apart, and that worked out very nicely. We got along real well with the people at Apart. Um, uh, that went on for several years, and then the people at 3D, the private equity company, decided they wanted to sell the combination of these two companies. Um, no, just put it on the market, and that's that's how we ended up with Biamp. And really, it's all worked out nicely. The time working with Apart is fun, enjoyable, real nice people, uh, and of course now Biamp owns us, owns them, and owns several other companies. And yeah, working with Biamp is fine. It yeah, just it's working out nicely. And I mean, what I'm doing is just trying to design new stuff, and I'm not really involved in sales. Biamp, uh, when I certainly was at Community. This small company, sort of everybody's involved in everything.
A
You
lot of
remember?
hats.
Yeah, exactly. Um, but now with Biamp, I still go to work pretty much every day, maybe for 4 or 5 hours, not
12.
12 hours. Yeah, like it used to not be uncommon. Um, and it's working nicely.
What are you driving these days?
Um, my Subaru STI, same thing I had for quite a while,
Excellent.
and it's a 2005, and I bought it new,
I
and it's a
remember,
very very enjoyable car.
I remember when you bought that.
Yeah.
That'll get you around the Philadelphia streets pretty.
Yes. Yes.
You still work out of the same location there on the third floor, if I'm right?
Oh no, we
Oh, whew.
um. If you remember, we bought the building next door, the office building. Well, it was a warehouse. We made it into an office building, and that's where my office is and my workshop.
Okay. Does he have that same vibe I would remember?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, Bruce, I got to say that the first time I came to meet you there, um, it was like, for me, it would be like a kid who loves toys going to FAO Schwartz. I can't,
Nice.
I can't think of a better analogy because, I have always loved audio. I have always been intrigued by the way they work mechanically and electrically, and your workshop is just a menagerie of those elements from the beginning, every process to the end.
Yeah.
And truly, for geeks like us, it's like a museum of the most interesting things ever.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it was. And I certainly appreciate all your input and what's needed and what was needed. And yeah,
Well, you certainly hit a lot of the requirements right on the head for the parks, and I know that they're used all over the world, and I look forward to what's coming next from you.
okay. I'll do my best.
I
I'll,
guess
pro- I'll go in and work on it this afternoon.
don't get a speeding ticket in that Subaru.
All right.
I wanted to ask you, kind of ending, thinking about your life, and I know that traveling and living other places generally is a benefit to people. Sometimes it's hard, sometimes a bit difficult, but just being around other cultures is helpful. And the your college tries. I'm not sure that our society really understands that college isn't always the best. That people don't always have the aptitude or just
It
the
doesn't
desire,
doesn't fit.
right?
Yeah.
And that there are many, many other ways to find your groove and to be very successful. And I look at what you've done. I am in awe of everything that you've done in your career, and thinking that you had an opportunity to go to Yale, went to Yale, and said, "Yeah, no, it's not for me." And for young folks, even young career people, what kind of advice would you give them that are looking for what to do and how to do it?
Ooh, that would be. I'm not sure I know what to say. I mean, probably going to college for most people would be more important than it was for me. Um, it's hard to know
So you're
what
you're
advice.
hanging out at Electric Factory, seeing all this going on. Where did the drive come from? Was that like innate to you that I see a problem, I'm going to
Yeah,
solve the problem?
yeah.
And did that come from somewhere in your childhood?
Um, I don't really know. I mean, yeah, I always was inclined to make things.
Yeah.
Um, you know, worked on cars. Yeah, I think that's probably just my nature, just to make something and try to design some improvement into.
And understand that that's a massive difference between you and most people, because most people would go try to find what they wanted, and you built it.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, and nowadays, you know, Google or Chat or Grok or whatever it might be, but the entrepreneurs, the Bruce Howze of the world, are like, I think I know what I want. I'm going to build it, and
Yeah.
power to you.
Yeah. It's just very enjoyable and financially worked out well, but there wasn't any guarantee of that when it started. It just kind of stepped along one foot in front of the other and
Very true.
came out well.
Yeah. Well, Bruce, thank you very much for your time. Maybe
Well,
sometime down the road, we can do this in your shop, and
fine.
maybe let the world see a little inside.
Yeah, I'm not sure how great it would look. It's
That is, certain people will be like him. I'll guarantee you that.
yeah.
Maybe not everybody, you know, would be impressed, but a large group of us will be.
Okay.
I thank you for your time.
Well, thank you, Larry.
And
Very nice.
look forward to our next meeting.
All right.
Thank you, Bruce.
All right.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of the people I know or its host. This podcast is for entertainment and informational purposes only.